back. My name is Pranvera, and today I want to talk about something I have been noticing more and more. And honestly, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like people are angry all the time. You go online, somebody is angry. You read the comments, somebody's fighting with somebody. You watch the news, people are arguing. You drive somewhere, somebody's impatient. You go into a store, somebody is frustrated. Even sometimes within family and friendship, people seem to get offended so quickly. And I've been wondering why. Why does it feel like we're all walking around with such a short fuse? And I'm not saying I'm completely innocent here. I'm human too, I got my moments too. There are days when I am tired and I'm stressed. I have too much on my mind, and something small can bother me much more than it normally would or it normally should. But that's actually what made me think about this. Maybe sometimes anger isn't really about the things we are angry about. Maybe it's everything that happened before that moment. Think about it. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you get angry. But maybe you are not really angry about that car. Maybe you had a terrible morning, or you didn't sleep well. You were worried about money. You had an argument with somebody. Or maybe you have been carrying something all week, and then somebody cuts you off, and suddenly that's the thing that gets all the anger. The car becomes the last straw. And I think people are carrying a lot right now. We're constantly receiving information, bad news, politics, wars, arguments, videos from different countries, different situations, people that are going through so much, opinions, the other people's problems, the other people's successes, people telling us what we should think, what we should buy, how we should look, where we should go, how successful we should be, what should we eat and what should we not eat. And then we wonder why we are so exhausted. Our brains don't really get a break. Even when we're sitting on the couch, we're still consuming something. Because we're scrolling, we're watching, reacting, comparing. And social media has changed something about the way we communicate. Because online, we forget that there is a human being on the other side of the screen. It's very easy to say something cruel to a person you never met. You see one sentence, one photograph, one opinion, and suddenly you think you know that person's entire character. And then you write something you probably wouldn't have the courage to say it if that person were sitting right in front of you. Why? Why do we have to put someone down? Why do we have to make someone feel bad about themselves? Is it because there is the distance? And that distance makes us less compassionate? I think that's one of the problems. We are reacting to people instead of actually talking to people. And the strange thing is, sometimes we are not even arguing about the original subject anymore. We're arguing because we are angry. Have you ever started a conversation with somebody and realized 10 minutes later that neither of you even remembers what you were originally discussing? You're just trying to prove that you're right, and the other person is trying to prove that they're right. And now it's not even about the subject, it's about winning. I think that's something we should all think about. Do we really need to win every conversation? Sometimes I ask myself that because there are moments when you can be right and still lose something. You can win the argument and lose the relationship. You can prove your point and hurt someone. And what did you really gain? I'm not saying you should never disagree. Of course, we disagree. We're different people and we come from different families and different cultures, different countries totally. We have different experiences in life. So naturally, we're going to see things differently. But somehow along the way, we have started treating disagreement like disrespect. And those are not the same thing. You can disagree with me and still respect me. And same, I can disagree with you and still care about you. Actually, I think some of the most interesting conversation happen when two people don't agree. Because that's when you have the opportunity to learn something. But you can say, okay, I don't see it that way. Tell me why you feel that way. That's a completely different conversation from saying, you're wrong, you're stupid. I know. Yeah, people say that. How could you possibly think that? I'm so disappointed you're thinking that. And unfortunately, the second kind of conversation gets a lot more attention online because anger gets attention. If you're calm, people scroll past. If you're reasonable, maybe nobody cares. But if you're furious and you act crazy sometimes, everybody wants to watch. And I think we have to be careful about that because what we consume affects us. It affects our mental health, our overall well-being. If you spend hours watching people scream at each other, eventually that starts to feel normal. If your entire feed is people fighting, criticizing, judging, and complaining, you might start believing that this is what society is. But it's not the entire society. It's just what the algorithm keeps showing you. And that's an important difference. There are still kind people out there. There are still people helping strangers, people taking care of their family, being kind to each other, accepting the differences. There are still people volunteering, doing good things without filming it. But kindness doesn't always go viral. Anger, most of the time, does. And maybe that's why we sometimes feel like the world is worse than it actually is. We're seeing the loudest people, not necessarily the majority of people. I think about this sometimes when I take a walk. You see people just living, someone walking their dogs or someone taking their child somewhere, going to work, sitting outside drinking a coffee, or someone helping an older person. Nobody is filming that. Nobody is putting a dramatic caption over it. It's just life. And maybe that's part of life we need to pay more attention to. The ordinary kindness, the quiet moments, those moments that nobody talks about it. The people who don't need an audience to be good. And then there is another thing I think about. Sometimes we get angry because we feel powerless. There are so many things happening in the world that we cannot control. We cannot control what politics can do. We cannot control what other people think, for sure. We cannot control what happens in social media or whether someone likes us. We cannot control whether somebody understands us. And when we feel powerless, sometimes anger makes us feel powerful, at least for a moment. We feel like we're doing something, we're arguing, fighting. But maybe sometimes the strongest thing we can do is recognize what it is actually within our control, because we cannot control anyone else. But I can control whether I answer with kindness, whether I keep arguing, whether I put my phone down, or whether I take a breath before responding and think. I can control whether I let somebody else's bad mood become my bad mood. And that last one is important. Because have you ever noticed how quickly moods spread? One person walks into a room angry and suddenly everybody feels uncomfortable. One person starts complaining and suddenly everybody is complaining. One person is negative and suddenly the whole conversation becomes negative. But the opposite is also true. One person can change the atmosphere by being kind, can make somebody laugh. One person can decide not to continue an argument. And one person can say, you know what? Let's talk about this when we're both calmer. So that, I think, is powerful. And maybe changing society doesn't always start with something huge. Maybe it starts with the way we behave in the 5 conversations we have today. In the way we treat the person who works at the store, how we talk to our children and how we speak to our parents, how we respond to our partner, how we talk about people who aren't in the room, how we behave when we're behind the wheel, and actually how we behave when nobody is watching us. Because I think we sometimes want to fix the world while ignoring the small world immediately around us. We want everyone else to be more respectful. But are we respectful? We want everyone to listen. But do we really listen? We want everyone else to stop judging. But do we judge? It is uncomfortable to ask ourselves those questions, but they are worthy asking. And I'm not saying we have to become perfectly calm people who never get angry, because that's ridiculous. That's impossible. It's never going to happen. Anger is part of being human. Sometimes anger tells us that some things matter. Sometimes it's telling us that the boundary has been crossed. Or sometimes it's telling us things need to be changed. The problem isn't necessarily feeling angry. The problem is what we do with it. Do we use it to understand something? Or do we use it to hurt someone? Do we take a moment or do we immediately react? Because there is a big difference between feeling something and acting on every feeling. And maybe that's one of the most useful things we can teach ourselves. You don't have to respond to everything and you don't have to answer every comment. You don't have to defend yourself to every stranger. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to attend every fight you are invited to. Sometimes you can simply say, that's okay, we don't agree. That's totally fine. We're different. We think different. I respect that. And just keep going. Honestly, I think there is freedom in that. Because when you stop needing everyone to understand you, you become much more peaceful with yourself. When you stop needing everyone to approve you, you become freer. When you stop reacting to everything, you get some of your energy back. So maybe the next time somebody makes you angry, just pause for a second and ask yourself, am I actually angry about this? Or is this just the thing that happened after 100 other things? Maybe you'll answer differently. Maybe you'll just walk away. Or maybe you'll have a conversation. You realize the person in front of you is carrying something too. We don't know what people are going through, and they don't know what we are going through. So maybe we can give each other a little more room, a little more patience, and more grace. Not because everyone deserves to get away with everything, but because we don't have to make every difficult moment worse. Life is already complicated enough. We don't need to add unnecessary anger to it. And maybe if enough of us starts doing that in our own little circle, something changes. Not overnight or dramatically, just little by little. One conversation, one reaction, one decision not to fight, one moment of patience, one person choosing kindness when anger would have been easier. Maybe that's where change begins. So try to say something nice to someone who expecting you to say something not nice at all, and see how their face and their mood changes. Just try that. I am really curious to know what you think. Why do you think people seem so angry these days? Is it social media? Stress? Is it fear or loneliness? The constant bad news we get? Or maybe it is a combination of everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, remember, you don't have to carry every argument that comes your way. Some things are worth your energy and some things are not. Choose carefully because your peace is worth protecting and your mental health and emotional is very important. Thank you so much for listening. Love and peace to you and to the world.